like just to start by adding to what's already been said about what a university is for. I was trying to write this down before I came, and I've got some bits of paper here which I'm reading from. Oh, sorry. Is that on? Is that on? Can you all hear me? Can you? Yeah, okay. So I've written down pursuit of knowledge and truth, questioning of taken for granted nature of the world, communication of ideas and knowledge to a new generation, debate and arguments, benefiting society by developing individuals with a range of skills. And I'll just add it to that because it came from what you said, being at the centre of the community and locality. So that's sort of the things that I think a university is about. I'm going to say some more about that. But I did want to say what it's not for, because I think, in a way, we've had a slippage. I'm sure that David Clark and the Vice-Chancellor would agree with all those things. But the problem is that I think what they've actually been doing has taken them in a different direction. So what's it not for? It's not for making a profit. It's not for providing training for employers. It's not for stifling debate. It's not for purveying of dogma. It's not for measuring of output. And I don't think it should be seen as a personal investment. Because to me, to use that language is the language of capitalism, intruding into something which should be a space free from the dogma of capitalism. Why did I call it a paradox? Because I think there's a problem which lies behind that sort of slippage I've just described, which is a structural problem, and I'm sort of coming at it in a way partly as a sociologist. So we've got the ideal of a university, and I wanted to read you something from a piece called The Idea of a University, which was written in the early 19th century by Cardinal Newman. And I think it's a brilliant piece. If you have not read it, you should read it. I'm reading a little bit. It's a long article, but I'll read a bit of it. A university seems to be in its essence a place for the communication of thought by means of personal intercourse. It is a place to which 1,000 schools make contributions, in which the intellect may safely range, sure to find its equal in some antagonistic activity and its judge in the tribunal of proof. It is a place where inquiry is pushed forward and error exposed by the collision of mind with mind and knowledge with knowledge. It's a place where the professor becomes eloquent and is a missionary and a preacher, displaying his science in its most complete and most winning form, pouring it forth with the zeal of enthusiasm and lighting up its own love in the breast of his hearers. It's a place which wins the admiration of the young, kindles the affection of the middle-aged, and rivets the fidelity of the old, a seat of wisdom, a light of the world, a minister of faith, an alma mater of the rising generation. It is this and a great deal more. Now that's a very idealistic account of what a university is about, but I think it still holds. But unfortunately, in the world we live in, universities are also organisations, and that's my paradox. That's Newman for you, what he said. This is from Michel's, the politics people among you will realise. Who says organisation says oligarchy. And the problem that has happened, I think, in contemporary universities is that they've become too much like businesses because of the principle of oligarchy. So I wanted to say just a little bit about that and then think about really, rather than, because you covered so well the good points of a university, I want to think about some possible tactics by which we can take our mission forward. Okay, so the paradox, as I've said, Newman's idea of the university is something like, I think, Habermas's view of the ideal speech community, where people can talk and negotiate and talk about tricky things where we have disagreements, and yet be able to continue that debate without too much rancour. But it's also, in Newman's vision, something that's democratic. And when he talks about professors, but he talks about students, as you did, as being absolutely integral to it. So it's not people who stand on the pedestal and patronise, it's students and professors and everyone else, all the layers of the university, sharing ideas in this collision of mind and mind, which I think is a great image. So we've got that, but how do we cope with the fact that universities are also huge and complex organisations which do need funding? Can these things be reconciled? How do we cope with that? Well, I have to say that in my view, the democratic ideal, which I do think, lies behind some of the things that David was saying earlier, and some of the discussions I've had with the Vice-Chancellor over the years, is endangered at Bristol. And I'm sort of turning a bit inwards in this talk, out from the broader political spectrum, because as some of you, or most of you know, I'm also the president of our UCU, University and Colleges Union, and we have been fighting all year to stop people being made redundant. I thought it was slightly ironic that David said if we didn't have these fees and cuts, lecturers would have to be made redundant, as they're already being made redundant. So, how does that fit? But there we go. I think there's a threat to democracy which comes from the oligarchic tendency. When you get yourself into a position of power, it's a bit like Tony Blair, you tend to lose touch with those people further down the hierarchical chain, and you're surrounded by people who are sort of on your level in that hierarchy, and you only hear the things that they're saying. So you get reassurance all the time, you don't get much critique. I do feel that's happening in this university at the moment, and that's something that some people here will have picked up on. So we have democratic structures in the university. We have things called faculty boards. However, there's a proposal, which I think was put forward by David Clark, to end the faculty boards because they're said to be not working because there's no proper debate or discussion in them. And they want instead to replace that with the things called FPARCs, Faculty Planning and Resources Committees, which consist of the dean, the heads of school, and the other faculty managers. All those people have managerial roles. So in other words, nobody who's not a manager will any longer have a say on decision making in the faculty. Now, I think that's a terrible thing, and I know some academics think that. But curiously enough, in 2 of the faculties, there's been a vote taken to move that way. And that sort of brings me to something which I want to throw at you students, because I think it's very important. I do feel that many of the lecturing staff in this university have kind of given up on critique. It's quite noticeable to me on the actions that I've been on that there have been lots of you, students, and there have been some old veterans of the 60s, of which I'm one, and there are a few others around here too, people on the point of retirement. But where are the staff aged 30 and 40? Where are they? They're not here. Oh, they are. But there aren't enough. There needs to be more people sort of standing up and saying this can't do it. And I think it's been very difficult to do that because of the oligarchic nature of the university. I heard a very good PhD student from arts being absolutely savaged by the Vice-Chancellor in the Senate last year when she criticised the cuts that were being asked for in arts. And it was, to my mind, what happened when he just sort of basically told her she was ignorant and she was American anyway, so what was the relevance to her? I felt it was very rude, and I did feel it was an example of this stifling of debate.